Is consistency one of the reasons why you still haven't launched your podcast? Or should I say, fear of lack of consistency? Are you afraid that you're not going to be able to keep up with a weekly schedule you set for yourself and for your show, and that you're going to disappoint yourself once again? If so, this episode is here to help solve that problem and not let that fear hold you back from launching your show any longer. And today, you will learn what you can change and implement to make consistency a normal part of your daily life. This is Say Yes to Podcasting, where solopreneurs learn how to start podcasts that attract their ideal clients and do the marketing for them. I'm your host, Anja Lordanic. Say Yes to Podcasting today. Now, listen, before we get into the episode, I have to say I originally recorded this one for my previous podcast, which was a general business freelancing podcast. But this topic of consistency is so relevant for podcasting too. And I've decided to add some stuff in, and here I am re recording it. So, for a small percentage of you listening right now, if this sounds a bit familiar, that's the reason why. But nonetheless, we could all use a refresher on a topic like this one. So let's get started. By the way, another very important note: in order for consistent and hard work to bring in results, we need to make sure we're doing the right things and that we're doing them right. Because consistently doing the wrong things or doing the right things poorly will not bear fruit. And us wearing consistency essentially as a badge of honor will not bring in sales, revenue, clients, or any kind of positive change for our businesses. So, for the purposes of this episode, let's just assume that whatever we're doing right now, we're on the right track, we're doing the smart things, we're doing them the smart way consistently. And I want to be real here, and I hope I can be honest with you. We all sometimes look at other people online and start comparing ourselves to what they're doing, how they're doing it, at least the version we see online. We wonder how they're able to keep up with, for example, daily posts, weekly episodes, weekly email newsletters, all while having 5 kids, 3 dogs, and a house to take care of. I'm obviously exaggerating on purpose, or am I? I still see some of those people online doing those things without providing relevant context. But it does seem on the surface that some have it all figured out and they're able to stay consistent for years and years without missing any day, any week of their business schedule. But the truth is, if all of what they're showing is true, they just created the systems that work around their schedule, or they have automated certain processes so they're completely hands off for them. And of course, we need to take into consideration the things they're not mentioning, because some have teams, literal teams, who handle social media. They have babysitters at their disposal 24/7, or they might have someone who cleans their home every week. So that's not on their to do list ever. And today, don't worry, we're not talking about them. We're not talking about people who have support surrounding them. We're talking about us, regular mortals who are running our businesses mostly by ourselves, but who are willing to put in the time and effort into marketing, in this case, podcasting, and make it all work in sync. We're willing to learn, adapt, be flexible, develop systems that will work for us and our schedule and our lives, because our business and personal lives are always and will forever be intertwined. Just some quick context, and I will be as real as I can with you. When it comes to my situation, I run my solo business with no employees and no VAs. I run a weekly podcast, By the way, thank you for being here and for tuning in. I don't take that lightly. I also run a weekly email newsletter, which is very short and very sweet. This is something I can do right now. And I post on LinkedIn mostly once a week, but lately I've been skipping some weeks. I haven't been as diligent as I used to be. And as of recently, I've started to be a guest on other people's podcasts as well, which also roughly amounts to once a week at this moment. And on the personal side, I have a husband and two daughters. One is 4, and the other is 8 months old. And neither mine or my husband's parents live in the same city as we do, but our eldest daughter does go to daycare. We don't have any pets, but this doesn't really matter for this episode. But I would love to get a dog, and I will update you on how that's going. I think you have more than enough context for now. Let me start by covering how we're already consistent in some areas of our lives without even realizing or noticing it. We're also going to cover why we even want to be consistent at something in the first place. And then we'll cover a few practical and easy to implement tips on how we can get better at staying consistent and what to keep in mind for the future. And lastly, I will share a great resource that I keep coming back to whenever I need a refresher on this topic. And I'm sure you're going to love it as much as I do because it is very helpful and very informative. It's a link, it's not something you need to download. Now, when I was thinking about how to cover this topic, I started thinking about the obvious things I mentioned before. You brush your teeth multiple times a day, hopefully. If you have kids, you pick them up from school or from daycare at the same time, roughly the same time every day, and you drink your cup of tea or coffee every morning without fail. I already had one cup of coffee. I need to make another one after recording this episode. And these are all habits. You don't really think about them. They're muscle memory. You just do them. You're consistent at them every single day. So let me share some great news with you. It's not that you're not capable of being consistent. You just haven't applied that same process to the things that feel optional, to things that feel new or sometimes even scary, like showing up online, launching that podcast, like reaching out to prospects on a regular basis. So let's try to think of ways to eliminate the resistance we feel about performing those business tasks, at least to the best of our ability. And quick side note, I read somewhere that if you want to introduce a new habit or start a new project, but you keep telling yourself you don't have the time, that's the first thing we say to ourselves. The first thing you need to do is check your screen time and check how much time you're actually spending or wasting using various apps, scrolling on social media, doing some things on your phone that do not serve you. And we are all guilty of this. We sometimes spend half an hour, some of us spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on our phones doing nothing. And this is a habit that I'm really happy and proud to report that I've eliminated, and that most of my content consumption on a daily basis has to do with podcasting and listening to other people's podcasts. Anyway, those hours can be a great indicator of where your time is going and how you can utilize your time better, what you can allocate those minutes or hours to instead. And I know it can be a bit daunting. Most of the time we're afraid of data, but data is here for a reason. It's a signal, it's showing us something. So don't be afraid to face it because only then can you apply some changes. Here, I have one quick tip I would like to share when it comes to eliminating the resistance we mentioned, and that is stacking. You don't really need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to know what needs to be done, what some of the non negotiables are, and find a way to mimic that behavior and apply it to any part of your business. You can, as James Clear says, attach your new habit to an already existing non negotiable one. For example, if you pick your kid up at 4 p.m., can you do something business related in 10 to 15 minutes before that? You probably can. And in this case, can you do something podcast related in 10 to 15 minutes? What could that be? You can write down some episode ideas. You can reach out to a potential guest. There are so many things that we could fit in 10 or 15 minutes, even though it doesn't sound like a lot at first. And honestly, this is a bit frustrating to admit, but more often than not, the tasks we dread the most don't end up taking that much time. That could mean signing up for a podcast hosting platform, which is how you can keep yourself accountable. That means, as I already said, sending that potential guest a DM. Those are all things that take up a couple of minutes of our time, but that are sometimes on our to do list and on our calendars for weeks and weeks. And then I, at least that's the case with me, I get mad at myself for not doing them sooner because it wasn't that difficult at all. So it's obvious that I'm referring to tiny tasks right now. But when we talk about consistency, we often think about those huge projects that seem insurmountable at the moment. As you're listening to me, you might be thinking about writing a book, launching a podcast, or redesigning your entire website. And all of these require dedication, hard work, quite a bit of your energy, and of course, consistency. So, before I move on to more practical tips I would like to share, let's examine why we want to be consistent in the first place. You've heard this one before. Let's start with the end in mind. Why does this project matter to you? What will being consistent at this project bring you? And most importantly, how will your life or business change once that project is done? Obviously, I'm mostly referring to launching your podcast here, but if there's another project you have on your mind right now, feel free to visualize that one. A caveat here is that once you do write a book or revamp your website, they're done. Of course, there's marketing to be done, but they're mostly the foundation is set. But when you launch a podcast or when you launch an email list, they can potentially go on for years to come or even decades. So just keep in mind which category this project of yours falls under, because that's important. What's the goal? If you're podcasting, is it about building trust with potential clients? Or is it about building reputation as a thought leader? Is it about expanding your network through guesting and inviting guests over? Regardless of the project, the point here is to be clear on the destination, of the end, of the why, as they like to call it. It is so hard to be consistent if you're not really sure why you're doing what you're doing. And I have an example from my own life, actually, from my husband's life. Years ago, he was consistent with his German classes. He would attend them multiple times a week. He wanted to learn the language, but he wasn't exactly sure how that new skill or that new language would serve him in the future. I have to say, he's a very disciplined person. So he actually stuck with it for 5 years. But without applying that knowledge, or in this case, without actively speaking that language, it can get rusty in no time. And this is something I've experienced with my Italian as well. So if you're doing something just because someone told you it was a good idea and you don't have anything, I will say, tangible that will keep you moving forward, like a goal that you're moving toward, it is better to focus your energy elsewhere. And this goes for podcasting as well. If you don't know your why you're doing something, what will keep you motivated every week to keep on creating, keep on posting, keep on connecting with your listeners and your guests, then it is better for you to postpone it. But if this is something you've been drawn to for months and years, then it is worth exploring. But let's say you know your why. You're now clear on why you want to do something. And now comes the fun part, the implementation. And here, as usual, I will be drawing from my own examples of running podcasts in the past. And my podcast, my previous one, started off as a passion project, the freelancing business one I mentioned at the start. And fun fact, when I first launched it, I told myself I would stay consistent for at least a year and see what happens. And I vividly remember telling people around me, like my family members and friends, I have no idea what this new project will bring me, but I know it's going to be good. So you don't always need to necessarily have a specific goal in mind, but I did set a consistency goal for myself. So publish weekly episodes for an entire year. And I stuck with that plan and actually surpassed it because that podcast was wrapped up with 100 episodes. So that's 2 years. Now, here's an obvious practical tip if you're faced with a big project like I was with that podcast. And here it is. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it definitely helped me stay on track. Break it down into smaller steps. And I know you've heard that one 1,000 times already. And trust me, so have I. But in some areas, I'm still not great at implementing it. I still often find myself overthinking something, overanalyzing, and standing still. That's not the case with podcasting because I kind of went over that hurdle and it's a non negotiable in my business. But in some other areas of my business, I can do better. But again, I have to be honest because that was the case with podcasting as well. It took me years to launch my podcast. And the same applies to my email list. I'm now consistent with it, but it took me years to start moving and get in motion. And every time I went ahead and did it and took the plunge and launched something, started something, I felt bad or guilty for not starting it earlier. And I know this is how you feel about podcasting if you're here. But that's a story for a different day because not everything is related to actual and tangible steps we need to take. But a lot of the things that precede the launch or start of a project actually have to do with inner work that has to be done in order to take that first step to get started. So let's keep it tangible today. One of the biggest consistency killers is overwhelm. And this is usually related to information overload. We often tell ourselves, I need to launch a podcast, or I should write weekly emails, or I want to write that book. I know I have a book in me. When what we actually need to do is schedule something super simple, a 30-minute block to brainstorm ideas first. And that is it. So take away those 30 minutes from your screen time and allocate them to a brainstorming session. And it is obvious, consistency becomes way easier when you literally shrink the task. So, for example, you don't need to record an episode, you can outline 2 episode ideas. You don't need to come up with 10 interview questions. All you need to do is send a DM to that guest. So, micro consistency still counts as consistency. And those micro tasks, micro things we do can also move the needle. And even the most prominent creators, podcasters out there started with something rough and messy. So, yes, I know that micro habits, micro tasks are great, but you're still dependent on yourself to do them. And you might still be feeling a bit of resistance when it comes to them. And this is where accountability kicks in, and it can be public or private. They're both free and they're both effective. To be completely honest, I feel like my entire business has been fueled by public or private accountability. I need someone nudging me and motivating me to do better all the time. And this is how most people operate. I know I'm not the only one, and there's absolutely nothing embarrassing about it. Both public and private accountability are free and they can work like a charm because the fear of public failure or letting someone down in private is far greater than procrastinating on doing the thing. We don't like letting anyone down. We can easily let ourselves down and kind of brush it off and move on. But when it comes to other people, that is much harder, which is exactly why I'm personally exposing myself to accountability all the time. Let's break them down here really quickly. So, public accountability is, for example, when you tell your audience that you have a weekly podcast, that you're launching something new, or when you join a co working session and someone expects you to show up. You can call it pressure, but we all sometimes need a little push to do some things. And I don't want to be too dramatic, but private accountability is a hill I will die on. I'm a bit extreme when it comes to this, but it might inspire you, who knows. But for the past 5+ years, I've had an accountability buddy with whom I've been sharing weekly marketing updates. We're very diligent and we only skip on a few vacation weeks each year. And we've exchanged almost 230 of those emails by now. There's a there's a little number in each email subject, so I'm pretty sure we're almost at that number, 230. And shout out to Chiara, who is one of my favorite and best business friends I've ever had. And just to be clear, you don't have to be as extreme as I am, but you can let your trusted peers or colleagues know that you're launching something new, that you're working on a podcast, and you can ask them to check in on you every week or once a month. And trust me when I say this, but you will go out of your way to check something off of that to do list just so you can let them know that you've made progress on that thing. This is something that happens with me regularly when I'm writing that weekly email to Chiara. As you can tell, these are all mind games, so to speak. But before we get going with that project and make a promise to ourselves, we often have to trick ourselves into doing something. But what is also important is we need to pick our own style of consistency. What does consistency look like in your world? What does your schedule allow for in the first place? This is one of the first things I ask my clients. What does your schedule look like? Not because I'm nosy, but because we have to see how we can fit podcasting into your existing schedule. What we can ditch, what we can add, what we can be flexible around, because all of those things are important. So think about what is sustainable for you long term. Can you dedicate 30 minutes every day to a podcasting task? And the good news and the bad news here is no one can decide this on your behalf. Your circumstances are yours. And there are some things you can't really change, but you can certainly influence some parts of your busy schedule and rework that schedule so that you're ready to introduce podcasting into it. Now, as we're nearing the end of the episode, I would like to remind you to think about what's on the other side of consistency. What do you want to achieve with this project? Do you want to become known, become trusted? Do you want to get better? Do you want to attract more clients? Because when you think about the future, things really do start falling into place. So try to envision what's possible when you launch that podcast, and taking that first step will prove to be much easier than you thought. And most importantly, we need to be flexible. The end result doesn't even need to look exactly like you envisioned it for it to be a success. And that is exactly the beauty of it. I will mention James Clear once again because he said it perfectly. He said, and I quote, "If you keep showing up, you will almost certainly break through, but probably not in the way you expected or intended. You need enough persistence to keep working and enough flexibility to enjoy success when it comes in a different form than you imagined." I think this is beautiful and a great reminder to stay flexible and not to be rigid. It's great to have a plan, but that plan and that structure allows for creativity and flexibility. And finally, I promise to mention a resource that helped me look at this topic in a new light. Jay Klaus is a creator I really like, and in one of his essays, he talks about consistency in a very pragmatic way. He talks a bit about this concept of activation energy, which is the minimum energy required to start a chemical reaction, which reminded me of the momentum we keep mentioning in business and in podcasting. So once you start, once you gain momentum, things fall into place. It's much easier to go forward. So, yeah, I will put the link to his essay on consistency in the show notes, and I highly, highly encourage you to check it out. I know we covered so much today, but this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and consistency is a term that is thrown around a lot in the podcasting space. But please don't forget what I said at the start. We need to do the right things consistently, or at least we need to be on the right track to make them work, to see results. So, consistency in and of itself is just a lot of hard work, spending time on various tasks without really knowing if they're going to move the needle. So, in terms of consistency in podcasting, I'm your person, I'm by your side. You can always reach out. I will put relevant links in the show notes, especially the 60-minute call, because that is where we can clarify what you need, what your schedule looks like, what your schedule allows for, and how you can fit and introduce podcasting into your life. That link will be the first one you see in the show notes. And if you're still here, thank you so much. I don't take it lightly at all, but consistency deserved a longer, dedicated, deep dive episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week.